Polish Ex-Servicemen Association.
During the Second World War, millions of people from many nations across the world would die in the fight against fascism. One of Britain's most important allies was the United States, which joined the war at the end of 1941. Prior to this, the US had already supplied the Allies with military equipment, but now the American army could be brought to Europe to fight against Hitler. In early 1942, the first American troops arrived in Britain and started preparing for their first battle with the Axis forces. Meanwhile, the British Army was being expanded, upgraded, and reorganized.
Somebody had invented an idea of the reconnaissance unit. This person, whoever it was, I've forgotten who it was some colonel, and he had got an idea of having reconnaissance units to go ahead and sort the enemy out and hold the positions while the rest of the troops went up, or to go ahead to find out where they were and then come back and let the infantry and the tanks deal with them, type of thing. Well, they wanted men for it, obviously. So they found out the 138 Infantry Anti-Tank Brigade was useless. So we came down from Scotland to Norfolk, to a place called Morton Hall in Norfolk, and the rest was made up of the 10th Royal Fusiliers. One unit was the 3-inch mortar unit, which I was in. Another unit was the scout unit, and another unit was the anti-tank unit, and another unit was the assault troops who were commando trained, and they were damn good lads as well. Because one of our lads in the assault troop won the military medal. So they put a bit of service in.
As 1942 progressed, Russia called on the Western Allies to invade occupied Europe to reduce the German pressure on the Red Army. However, the British insisted that their forces were not yet strong enough to liberate Europe, and convinced the Americans that they should invade the Vichy French colonies in northwest Africa. It was hoped that the French forces here would support the Allied invasion, but Vichy France was not on good terms with Britain. Back in 1940, after Hitler's conquest of Western Europe, Churchill had feared that the French navy would be handed over to Germany for use against Britain. Consequently, he ordered the Royal Navy to destroy the French fleet that was stationed at Mers el-Kabir in Algeria to prevent it from being taken over by the Germans, and to show to the world that Britain was committed to continuing the war.
The French were going over, they're going to let the going into the German hands, so I would say destroy them. The French were definitely going over into German hands, the French fleet. So from what I can see about it and read about it, again it was only second-hand knowledge that we were getting at the time, but I would say destroy them if they're going to be an asset to the Germans.
However, the attack was only partially successful. Only one French warship was destroyed, others were heavily damaged, but were later repaired. Ironically, Churchill's orders had probably been unnecessary. None of the repaired vessels were ever given to Hitler, and when Germany did try to seize them in late 1942, the French sailors scuttled their warships. Regardless of its necessity, the attack on Mers el-Kabir had strained relations between Britain and France, and some Allied commanders feared that the Vichy forces in Africa would resist the invasion. To try and avoid this scenario, secret negotiations were held with pro-Allied members of the Vichy forces to gain support for their plans. On the 8th of November 1942, Operation Torch began, with over 100,000 British and American troops landing on the beaches of Morocco and Algeria. Initially, the Vichy army fought against the invaders, but after a few days, negotiations were held, which led to the French commanders signing an armistice and allowing Allied troops to occupy northwest Africa. Hitler was furious when he heard about this collaboration and ordered German and Italian troops to seize control of all remaining French territories. In mid-November, Axis forces began occupying Tunisia, a country with mountainous terrain which created strong natural defences against invading armies. The Allies tried to advance into Tunisia before the Germans could consolidate, but their progress was halted and both sides began to dig in. Meanwhile, the Africa Corps was being driven back across Libya by the British 8th Army and eventually retreated into Tunisia. As winter set in, both sides brought in reinforcements to strengthen their positions.
We boarded up Liverpool or Glasgow, Tyneside, what they call it, Clydeside, Clydeside or something. And we went out into the Atlantic Ocean, right out in the Atlantic Ocean, where we met a convoy of Americans, and then we were all sailed then for North Africa. Myself, I sailed all the way through the English Channel, and I wasn't seeing sick at all until we got into the Mediterranean. And that calm, and all I could hear with the boats going throb, 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 the boat engine, and ooh, it upset me, so I went and spewed over the deck side. We were 8 days out on the ocean, we were well out, and a tremendous convoy, because the Americans had come up, we'd all met in the big Atlantic somewhere, and I was on a boat called the SS Orbiter, and it was only a cargo boat that had been used for carrying corned beef from Argentina to Britain, type of thing. Then, as I said, we sailed at a convoy and we landed at Algiers.
Was it crowded aboard the ship, the cargo ship?
Yeah, it was crowded. Yeah, it was crowded. I'm going to say I don't know, but I remember now it was crowded. We were all in hammocks. There were no sleeping on the floor at all. There were hammocks strung between each post and all over the place. But we weren't allowed to idle. And we weren't allowed to go on deck either.
Really?
We all had to stop below. We wasn't allowed to go on deck. For the simple reason, if there had been bombers or something sort, they say, no, that's a troop ship, and had to go at it. That's all I can think it was.
How's the climate in Africa?
Now, climate, it's warm during the day, but it's been as hot here as what it is during the day, and at night it freezes a lot. It's cold at night. Now, I once dropped a clang of it when I come back from Muddy. We had these huts with these, like a troughs in and taps on, and we're sweating, and I just went like that with water, and it was just as if a stone wall had hit me. We've been at 8, coming out, like cold water, the shock. And are you all right? One of the lads said, all right. I said, oh. I said, don't throw any water over yourselves. Why? So I took it away. I believe he went flat out,
But in North Africa, I can't remember it being nothing else but very, very hot.
Was there a danger of disease?
Oh yes, I'll show you in the book. I've got inoculations left, right, and centre. Typhoid, lockjaw, malaria. There were 2 different types of yellow tablets that you had to take to combat malaria, etc., etc. And if you didn't swallow them, all your mouth was all yellow with taking them. The driver of the other carrier, a friend of mine, Fred Moore, he couldn't swallow his tablets, so he had to chew them. So his mouth was all of them yellow, and he had to drink plenty of water to get them down.
Did you ever catch malaria at all?
No.
Right.
No, I catch gastroenteritis. I was in hospital. I was in the field hospital for a week, maybe a fortnight. I don't know. I was in the field hospital. That was after the war. That was after Tunis fell, and we were all at a lovely place. As far as I can gather, it used to be known as the Millionaires Paradise. I think it was Hammerliff or Hammernet or something like that. And it was beautiful, and the sea was, you know, you could see it going around like that, like a very large bay. And the sea was that crystal clear, you could see down for quite a long way, you know, fishes swimming around. Had a lovely time there, and that was there when I caught gastroenteritis.
Whilst the Western Allies pursued their campaign in North Africa, on the Eastern Front, events were taking place that would change the course of the war. Back in the summer of 1942, Hitler had launched a large offensive into southern Russia to capture the Caucasus and its vital oil fields. At first, the operation was successful, but it stalled when the German Sixth Army attacked Stalingrad to secure the flanks of the advance. The Battle of Stalingrad began in late August, and after several months of brutal house-to-house fighting and appalling casualties for both sides, it seemed as if Hitler's troops would capture the city. But on the 19th of November, the Red Army launched a massive counterattack and encircled the Axis forces. The other German armies withdrew from southern Russia to avoid being surrounded themselves, but failed to rescue the 250,000 men trapped at Stalingrad. Further Russian offensives against the besieged Sixth Army eventually forced them to surrender in February 1943. By now, both sides had suffered around 1 million casualties, but the Soviet Union could absorb such losses. Germany could not. Victory was now inevitable for the Allies, but the Wehrmacht was still a formidable force that put up stiff resistance on all fronts.
Tunisia were tough. Oh, there's no getting away from it. That's the first time that I was in real action. There was several battles, lots of dead, and all this, that and the other, but there isn't anything to say about it, except that that's just wartime, you see.
During the war, many units of the British Army were equipped with Bren gun carriers, an open-topped, lightly armoured vehicle that could be used for transporting weapons or troops.
The Bren gun carrier was full like that, with about 3 soldiers in this side, 3 in that, and then the commander and the driver in the front, 4, 5, 6, 7, quite possibly. But the mortar carrier had part of the back cut back like that, so there was only room for 2 in that side, 1 in that side, 1 in the front, and the driver. So that's 5 of us. And on the back, the barrel was clipped on the back there. The tripod was clipped on the back. The base plate was laid flat, and it was similar to that. I was in a little seat like this, and the only place I got was up here, and then the top of the Bren gun carrier was there. I could look over the top. Now my seat had an handle, and I could press it down and then look through a slit. The seat dropped, but we couldn't in my carrier. because we were that afraid of mines, we'd got sandbags in the bottom of the carriers, so I couldn't drop the seat, so I was up here all the time. And so I couldn't have a rifle at this side because I got my gear stick and everything else. So I had a Thompson machine gun which laid on this little rack, and that was my armament.
To me, with reconnaissance, we knew where we were going, and then through different radio messages, we could tell roughly where the enemy was, you know. But we were always the first to get anything, if you understand. Up to a point, you know, because we were there first, and then if we saw right, we would bring back next thing from another division. Infantry would come through, you see, and it's what we'd cleared the area or told them, right, there's some there but not much, so there's right, we'll send enough to see to it, you see, and that was it.
What happened to us, if we went into a forward position, we used to go up with the truck and the Dunnar and the two, you know, Dunnar with a motorbike rider. Dunnar means dispatch rider. And the two carriers, and then we'd mount mortars, and then the officer say, I'm going for further orders, and he used to bugger off out and leave us to it. So we used to start dropping a few bombs and then wait while we got further orders to pull out again. One incident, when we was in Tunisia, we were pulling out from one area to go to another area, and Baggy's brain gun carrier spun round and broke his track. So they all jumped on mine, and we're going out, and Major Langham, at the time he was a grand officer with that, he was a soldier. He was a British officer that I admired. Where are you going with all that, Kemp? The carrier's broken. Where's the carrier? Down it. Bloody well go back and fetch it. So to go back on our own, and we, of course we got out of our vehicles and laid down with the guns, you know, machine guns and Tommy guns. I had a Thompson submachine gun and rifles, while Baggy repaired his tracks. Yeah. That officer wasn't going to let that carrier go to fault at Germans, no.
Well, were the Germans advancing at that point?
Yeah, they were advancing, yeah.
On many occasions, Winston Churchill travelled to different fronts of the war to confer with senior Allied commanders and visit their troops.
He was a fellow that was at home cheering the British people on one thing or another in his own manner, and we were fed up of listening to it over radio. In fact, we got more fun listening to Lord Haw-Haw than we got from listening to Churchill. I mean, silly British soldiers, of course, with sarcastic sods and all this, that and the other. We got more fun listening to Haw-Haw than what we got from Churchill. So when Churchill came in this cavalcade, now I'm not sure whether we're in the first, well it would have been. There'd have been somebody in front, somebody in a jeep in front, and then there's Churchill's car, and there was some sort of cheering down the ranks somewhere, but it was all half-hearted. And then when the Baytunist came in his car, all the soldiers cheered, you know, hooray, throw the caps up in the air, hip hip, hooray. It was so disgusting what we did, really, that C Squadron of the 46th Recce, that was the scout troop, they all got confined to barracks for being naughty, you know.
By spring 1943, the Allied forces were pushing deeper into Tunisia, and the Axis armies now found themselves trapped against the Mediterranean Sea. The Germans and Italians soon realized that their situation was hopeless. Evacuation by sea was impossible, and further resistance would only delay an inevitable defeat. Consequently, on the 13th of May, the Axis armies in Tunisia surrendered.
I was driving along in the brain gun carrier, and so was Baggy. We called him Baggy because he was only a little short fella, and his uniform always seemed to hang around him. But he was a good lad and a good driver and a good mechanic as well. And we were driving along like that, and the Germans were coming out with the guns. They could have shot us up, but they were coming out with the guns up in the air over the heads like that, you know, surrender, surrender. We can't take you, you know. They wanted us to take them on the wagons, so we'd no room, you know. It was a medical type of thing with that. Drove straight through them, and they were all coming towards you with the rifle up in the air. If they had the rifles down there and started shooting, things might have been different. There was full victory in North Africa. The 8th Army had done their job coming up. The British Army had done their job going down and squeezed the Germans into cap something, cap Bonn, cap something. It's one of those bits of land that juts out. And over 2,000 German soldiers and all the equipment was captured there. So we nearly got our Dunkirk back. But no, it wasn't their Dunkirk. They didn't get away. No. We captured them. Yeah. And they all went in great big holes with wire netting round, you know, thousands of them.
The loss of Tunisia was a major blow to the Axis powers, especially for Italy, whose military strength was now severely weakened.
And Italy didn't really want war. And this is epitomised by Italian prisoners of war practically went free in this country to all intents and purposes, because the average Italian didn't want the war. And I know cases of the Italians, in fact we've just been up to the Orkneys now, and they worked alongside the people. I've been to Albury St John near Richmond, and they had a Italian war camp there, and they had that much freedom. And when the Desert Rats eventually took over North Africa, they surrendered in their thousands. Had one or two British soldiers with thousands and thousands of prisoners, only glad to be out of the war.
We had prison attack when we was in Nairobi. We were in an MT section for a little bit, and we were all Italian prisoners, they were all boat mechanics. And they were doing overhauling of, you know, of army vehicles. And they were all right to get on with, you know. And Christmas 43, he said, come up, interpreter come up, he says, you've got to come down to Italian mess tonight. Eh? Can't go down there, not allowed. I swore it with Sergeant Major, he says. So I went down, and there was spaghetti, there was chicken. You mentioned it, there was this dish, like a big dish, you know, and it had chicken, it had everything in it, you know. Do you know, it was beautiful, you know. And someone could speak English, and we got talking to one, it's queer, he said, got talking to one there, and he saw a cat badge, you know, artillery. Bomb, you know. I said, aye, that's African bomb. I said, aye. I said, yeah. You know, I said, no, plane, yeah. They'd shot him down in Abyssinia. Yeah. He was on a bombing run in Abyssinia.
This is in 1936.
He said, them guns have anti-aircraft guns that shot him down. He says, then interpreter come over and tell you, he said, well, he landed about 200 yards from one of your gun positions. He said, he was lucky, he said, there was nobody with a machine gun, did it? They killed him there and then.
German prisoners,
yes.
I saw thousands of them. Literally thousands of them. That was when Tunis fell.
How did that look? How did they all look? I mean, did they look glad to be out of the war or things? Or?
No, they seemed all right to me. But what some of them behind the cages as we were walking round with rifle over his shoulder, Thompson submachine gun slung on my shoulders, make sure they didn't make a breakout or anything like that. We stopped and talked to some of them. And one of them offered what they call him, Joe Norton, one of the carry crew, he offered him his watch if he would contact his wife in Germany and tell him that he was safe. And Joe said, I'm afraid I can't do it because I don't know that. So that was it. And they still believe that we're going to win the war. Oh, aye. They still believe they're going to win the war. Well, we just laughed and said, yes, you know.
Even before the fall of Tunisia, the Allies had already decided on their next course of action. The Americans had wanted to focus on invading France, but the British had convinced them that they should first launch an invasion of Italy to gradually weaken their opponents. Churchill had described Italy as the soft underbelly of the Axis, but the Germans were determined to prove him wrong.